Well done. Before I start, I just want to know and make sure it's okay. My husband is in here listening because what you don't know is he actually is a minister. He's a pastor and he preaches not regularly, but I have to sit through his sermons. We all know that story is important. So, and when we hear story, we need to use some wisdom in hearing it. So it's not just a matter of being a good listener. There's going to be a time where we're going to need to react to the story. And I don't mean a big over-the-top reaction, but respond maybe. So I'm sure you've all heard the story about the young husband, right? He's got a problem at home. He hasn't been married very long, but he's got a problem at home. So he finds his rabbi. He's a young Jewish husband. So he finds his rabbi, and he says, Rabbi, she's trying to kill me. I know it. She's trying to kill me. She's trying to poison me. What am I going to do? And the rabbi's like, oh, you want I should go see her? I don't do that accent well, sorry. Anyhow, you want I should go see her? So the fabulous, could you go see her? Because I don't know what to do. She's trying to poison me. I don't know what to do. I need your help. So the rabbi says, okay, I'll go. So off he goes. A couple of days go by and they run into each other again, and the young husband goes, oh, did you have a chance to see my wife? Rabbi, did you have a chance to see my wife? He's so excited, he's so hopeful. Rabbi, yeah. Funny you should ask, because I just spent 2 hours with her. Oh, that's fantastic. So what should I do? Oh, Rabbi kind of steps back, takes a deep breath, and he slowly says, take the poison. Story helps us connect. And connection is a way that we can build relationships. When you hear and take the time to listen to a story from anyone, an adult in the building or a child or a parent in the building, what the message is that they matter. That what they're doing matters, who they are matters. Just to take that little bit of time. Sometimes it doesn't take very much time at all. Story shapes our lives, it directs our lives. It impacts our choices, it can limit us or it can give us freedom. Often we find that it's not the story so much anymore, but it's the impact of that story. So you can have things that have happened or you were involved in when you were younger, and maybe even forget about them, or they're not really relevant in your life at this point, and you go on, whether it's in high school or in your 20s or 30s or 40s, and things can happen, and they can trigger that spot where that story is, because we also know that experiences are embedded in ourselves, right? We know that. We know neurologically that that feeling, that physiological feeling can become embedded. So something can trigger that, and you're going to feel that impact of the original story, not just the impact of what's happened now. So with little ones, and high school kids, and when I say little ones, I'm talking 18 and younger. With the little ones, if something happens and it triggers that, and they're having some kind of behavior or reaction, it could be the impact, not of what's happened now. Because how many times do you go, really? You're going to behave like that because of that? Well, they're not behaving like that because of that. They're behaving like that because of this, because of the impact of the story. There is good news, and I love how science now has caught up with things that we knew. We knew that you didn't have to stay stuck, right? We knew that. It used to be a time we didn't know that, but in the last 10 years we knew that. Virginia Satir, I don't know, anybody familiar with Virginia Satir's work? She is often called the mother of family therapy, and she has some work along with coping stances. So when we get into things that are difficult, or in relationship, or not relationship, or just life, and we kind of get to a place where we're not able to navigate what we're doing, we have a default coping stance, okay? Everybody has it. Some people have a really predominant one, and some kind of shift between several of them. So these are the 1, 2, 3, 5 that she talks about, and they're not in any particular order. Maybe, no, they're not. So we don't say that a person is a blamer. So if you are in a relationship with someone and they're doing, it's your fault, you did it wrong, you should have turned on the dishwasher, it's your fault the dishes aren't done, and they're blaming, we don't say they're a blamer. We're not going to label them like that. We're going to say they're using blaming as a coping stance. They might have come home from a really lousy day at work. They thought they're going to have clean dishes. They're not clean because you didn't turn on the dishwasher. So that's how they're coping. So the person that uses blaming, if you think of a triangle about context, so what is the story, the context, and then you, and then the other person, the person that uses blaming cares about context. That dishwasher is an issue. They care about themselves. They are important. You are not important. You're out of the equation, and that's why they can use that blaming. The flip side is placating. So the placating, I think, and visually for me, I think of someone that's like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. Like, I've tried to be nice, but I'll try harder. I'll be nicer. I can be nicer. I can be nicer. And they take all the blame. Their position is, contact is important, right? I'm so sorry. I should have phoned you from work. Sorry, Craig. It's not your fault. It's my fault.
My battery died.
So again, context is important. You are important. They are not important. So can you imagine when you have either two kids at school and one has placating as a coping stance, the other one has blaming, the power imbalance, right? And forget about school, in relationship. And it can be really volatile sometimes. Definite power imbalance in that. The other one, not to be personal, but I might be married to someone that has his coping stance is super reasonable. And that type of person, insert preachy tone, it's not about the feelings or the emotions, it's about the context. It's about the context. I will Google all the information you want and I will be right. You know those people that are never wrong? But they're not going to let you touch their feelings. They don't care about your feelings, they don't care about their feelings, they care about the context. The next one is irrelevance, and this one and I flipped a counselor a lot. I still actually am a counselor. I'm registered with the BC Association of Clinical Counselors, and I thought I would have cards up here in case anybody minded that, but that's just really tacky. So, if kids come along and they're using irrelevance as a coping stance, that's often a red flag for that there's been trauma. This is the kid or the adult that absolutely, they don't care about context, they don't care about you, they don't care about themselves. If this is happening over here, they're, oh, that shiny thing over there. They're the kids that we used to call the class clowns, right? The other one, and the goal is congruence. And the congruence, Virginia 60 talks about it, is when we become I'm not laughing because it's funny, but a fully functioning human being. Okay? Right. How many of us are there? So, in my terms, for me, where I am, congruence is when I'm okay with who I am. I can be in a relationship with someone, and I can have context, and I'm important, and they're important, and there's a balance. And I'm just as important, and they're important, and I'm grounded, and, in terms of work, when you're dealing with difficult situations, again, we talk about the self-regulation, the mind-up piece, the breathing piece. To breathe, grounded. For me, it's always putting my feet on the ground, even if I'm sitting. If I'm sitting, I'll put my feet on the ground, sometimes I'll put my hands on my lap, take a breath, and remind myself. I have a mantra, it's about, I will delight in the abundance of peace. And what do we do with the stories? Do we listen to the stories? Is it our job to listen to stories? I mean, don't we have people for that? And what difference does the story make at school? Because if you don't think it does, then what I'm saying is gobbledygook, right? Because this is really coming from a position that that story matters. That to connect with that kid, to build a relationship with that kid, we need to know their story. And when I'm talking about story, I'm talking about really their life. So little slides, little slices put together. It doesn't have to be one event. It's kind of, where were they before they were here? What's gone on with them before they were here? What are their interests? What do they dislike? It's really, I've said this before in other meetings, it's knowing your kids. So where do we start? We listen. If not you, then someone. Somebody has got to listen, and listen without judgment. If we want these students to have their best chance at school completion, if we really, really believe that graduating makes a difference, then these kids have got to have someone in our building to care and listen. That's a theme I've heard. I think the people that came back from that middle school conference, that was one of the big things, is somebody's got to know those kids. Somebody's got to know them. Is the story ever an excuse? I still kind of, you can probably tell by my band that I don't think so. But I still have that, you know what? Do we let them use it as an excuse? Are they allowed to behave the way they're behaving? That behavior's not okay. Just because we know their story and we understand it doesn't mean that to behave disrespectfully is okay. And I will often say that to kids. Okay, you know what? We're still at Shortweed, we act respectfully. And that looks like da-da-da-da-da, right? Because we still want to have boundaries. We still need them to know that within our building, this is a container, that they are safe within that. But if they're saying, I can't do this, I'm gonna believe it. And you know what, if I don't really believe it, I'm gonna act like I believe it. Because I'm gonna validate their story. I'm gonna validate where they are and go from there. Also, the other thing is, and I think you touched on this, we can't change family systems. We cannot change the family dynamics. And we all know that a lot of stuff that we're doing at school isn't maybe going to make a big difference because the shift needs to happen at home, right? So, what do? Nothing? Absolutely not. because we can still make little shifts at school. I believe in transformation. But the speaker was talking about, are you a reformer or a transformer? I thought, wow. Usually I'm in the middle. You know, you take those personality tests. I never kind of come out like this or like that. Just I'm a transformer. I'm absolutely a transformer. I'm not here to reform that kid. I'm here to transform. Because to me, reform is from the top over. Transform is to get in their hearts. And how we get in their hearts is listening to their story, building a relationship, connecting, and then that gives us a right? They're going to respect us. How many of you know that when you have a relationship with a kid, you can say and do a lot of tough things with them, and they're going to listen, they're going to respond, right? Because you've got that relationship. So I'm almost done. Last week, I was was last week or 2 weeks ago? Or 3, I don't know. Anyhow, a little while ago I was really frustrated. And things were just crazy at school. So, you know, in our school we have red sticks. So if there's an emergency in a classroom, so you get called down to deal with this. And so there's probably about 8 of those. And then we have yellow cards. So, because if it's not an emergency, you send the yellow card. And on and on and on and on and on. And so we're hopping all the time. And I thought, why am I doing this? Really? What's the point? So I was ready to quit. I think I phoned Jim and I said, it was lunchtime, can I retire now? Yes, ever the wise reverend said, I think you should wait till after school dinner. So by then I was in love with my job again. Anyhow, I decided that I needed to do something. So I took one of our boys, and I've known him for about 4 years, and he was one of those out of control kids. You know, I got him and I said, hey, bud, come on down with me, just come down to my office. And I made the time. So it was one of those days of, I will delight in abundance of peace, I will delight in abundance of peace. So we're walking into my office, and he's freaked out. He's in grade 5 now, because he never gets to see us when he's good. So we just chatted. I hadn't had a time to talk to him for so long. And we just chatted, and he's telling me what he's doing, and he's also giving me hints for the school. You know, Mrs. Perry, you know what would make this school better? This school would be better if we didn't have such hard chairs. You know, you sit in these chairs for a long time and your butt gets sore. I'm thinking, okay, so budget time, so chairs. But the part for me that made such a difference in that, because that was more for me than for him, was to see the transformation in this kid. His story's the same, and probably his situation at home could be even worse than it was before. But he has had adults, lots of adults in the building walk alongside of him, try little things, and you know, it's not about the stickers, and it's not about the charts and the grades. I'm not saying they're a bad thing, but that's not how you build a relationship. And he knows that we're there and that we care. So those escalations, while they're not extinct, they're not there so much. To me, that is a transformational change. What has happened is, in his life, he now has a place in his mind, heart, however you want to think about it, that he has a new anchor. He knows what it feels like to be understood. He didn't know that before. I know he didn't know that before. So before, when we say, I understand you, he didn't believe us. This is 4 years, right? He can now go, and that's the part of transformational change that is so wonderful, that you have this pathway and you build experiences into the kids. And you know, it takes time. It takes time. And it also comes at a cost. Because in order to have that relationship and to connect, we're giving part of our heart away. Because you can't do this work without connecting at a heart level. The takeaway. As humans, we're born for relationship. Right? For birth, we're born from a relationship. We're born for attachment. Attachment is lifelong. All from birth to grave, there needs to be attachment. One way we build relationships is by sharing stories. We've covered that a lot today. We build strong schools by building strong relationships. Right? Little steps. So I have a goal. And it's a lofty goal, but this is my goal. That when a student leaves my school, I don't want them to be the same as when they came into my school. Right? I don't want the same person leaving, and not just because they got older. That's transformation. It doesn't have to be big, it can be small, but I want transformation. It's worth it, they are worth it, and it's doable. So when I was planning this talk, I came across this slide, and it kind of sums up my thoughts. Sometimes people come into your life not to love you, but to make you feel that you are worth loving. Kids in my school don't need to know that I love them. They don't need to know that. But I want every kid, when they leave my school, to know that they are worth loving.